The Comfort Zone Trap. Why Growth Begins Where Comfort Ends. Written and published by Fearless Audiobook. Introduction. What if the greatest obstacle standing between you and the life you've always dreamed of isn't a lack of talent, intelligence, or opportunity? What if it's something that feels completely harmless, something you actually enjoy? What if the real enemy is comfort? Most people believe that a comfortable life is the ultimate goal. They spend years building routines that feel safe, predictable, and familiar. But hidden beneath that sense of security is an invisible trap. It quietly convinces you to avoid risks, postpone dreams, and settle for less than you're capable of becoming. Day after day it whispers, maybe tomorrow. Before you realize it, tomorrow has turned into years. Every remarkable achievement in history began with someone willing to step into uncertainty. Every successful entrepreneur, athlete, artist, scientist, and leader had one thing in common. They chose temporary discomfort over lifelong regret. Growth has never lived inside the comfort zone. It begins the moment you leave it behind. In this audiobook, you'll discover why your brain clings to familiarity, how fear disguises itself as logic, and why discomfort is not a warning sign, but an invitation to evolve. More importantly, you'll learn practical strategies to break free from limiting habits, build genuine courage, and create lasting momentum toward the life you truly want. This isn't about taking reckless risks or becoming someone else. It's about becoming the person you've always had the potential to be. So take a deep breath, leave the familiar behind, and let's begin the journey where every extraordinary life truly starts beyond the comfort zone. Chapter 1. The Invisible Prison. Understanding the Comfort Zone. Imagine waking up every morning, following the same routine, making the same decisions, talking to the same people, and ending the day exactly as you expected. Nothing feels particularly wrong. In fact, everything feels safe. You know what tomorrow will look like because it will probably look just like today. At first glance, this seems like a peaceful life. But beneath that sense of stability lies an invisible prison. One with no walls, no bars, and no locked doors. It is called the comfort zone. The comfort zone isn't a physical place. It's a psychological state where your behaviors, thoughts, and routines feel familiar and predictable. Inside this zone, you experience little stress because you're doing things you've already mastered. Your brain loves this environment because it conserves energy and minimizes uncertainty. From an evolutionary perspective, this makes perfect sense. For thousands of years, avoiding unnecessary risks helped humans survive. But in today's world, the same instinct that once protected us can quietly prevent us from growing. Comfort itself is not the enemy. Everyone needs moments of rest, stability, and peace. The problem begins when comfort transforms into permanence. When you stop learning because learning feels difficult, when you avoid opportunities because they seem uncertain, or when you settle for good enough because change feels uncomfortable, your comfort zone becomes a trap rather than a refuge. The most dangerous thing about the comfort zone is that it rarely feels dangerous. Unlike obvious obstacles, it doesn't announce itself with warning signs, it doesn't create immediate pain. Instead, it slowly convinces you that where you are is where you belong. It whispers that taking risks isn't worth it, that you're too old or too inexperienced, that success is for someone else. These thoughts become so familiar that they begin to sound like facts instead of fears. Think about two graduates who begin their careers on the same day. One accepts a stable job and never seeks additional skills because everything feels comfortable. They avoid new responsibilities, decline leadership opportunities, and continue doing only what they already know. The other graduate starts in a similar position but commits to continuous learning. They take challenging projects, develop new abilities, accept constructive criticism, and occasionally fail along the way. 10 years later, the difference between them is remarkable. It wasn't intelligence that separated their paths. It wasn't luck. It was the willingness to leave the comfort zone repeatedly, even when doing so felt uncomfortable. This is the hidden cost of comfort. Every time you choose familiarity over growth, you may also be choosing a future that's smaller than your potential. The opportunities you never pursue, The conversations you never start, the skills you never develop, and the dreams you postpone all carry a price. That price is rarely visible today, but it becomes painfully clear over time. Many people mistake movement for progress. They stay busy every day, checking emails, attending meetings, completing household chores, and following routines. Activity, however, is not the same as growth. You can spend years being busy without becoming better. Growth requires stretching beyond what feels easy. It asks you to become a beginner again, to risk making mistakes, and to embrace uncertainty. One reason the comfort zone is so powerful is that it rewards us immediately. When you avoid a difficult conversation, you feel relief. When you decline a challenging opportunity, your anxiety disappears for a while. When you choose the familiar path, everything feels easier. Your brain interprets this relief as a reward, making you even more likely to repeat the same behavior next time. Over weeks, months, and years, avoiding discomfort becomes a habit. Yet the irony is impossible to ignore. The very actions that provide short-term comfort often create long-term dissatisfaction. A conversation you avoid today may become a bigger problem tomorrow. A skill you refuse to learn today may limit your career years later. A dream you postpone this year may eventually become a lifelong regret. Extraordinary lives are not built by accident. They are built by people who understand that growth demands discomfort. Every new skill begins with awkwardness. Every meaningful relationship requires vulnerability. Every significant achievement asks you to do something you've never done before. The discomfort you feel isn't evidence that you're on the wrong path. More often it's evidence that you're stepping beyond your current limits. As you continue through this audiobook, remember one important truth. Your comfort zone is not your identity. It is simply a collection of familiar habits and predictable choices, and habits can change. Every time you choose curiosity over fear, action over hesitation, and growth over comfort, the walls of that invisible prison begin to weaken. Your greatest potential has never existed inside the comfort zone. It has always been waiting just beyond it. Chapter 2. The Psychology of Fear. Why do intelligent, talented, and ambitious people often hesitate when opportunity knocks? Why do so many dreams remain unfinished, businesses never launched, books never written, and conversations never started? The answer is surprisingly simple. It isn't because people lack ability. More often, it's because they misunderstand fear. Fear is one of the oldest survival mechanisms built into the human brain. Thousands of years ago, it protected our ancestors from dangerous animals, harsh environments, and life-threatening situations. The brain learned to keep people alive by avoiding anything unfamiliar or uncertain. While the world has changed dramatically, your brain still operates using many of those ancient survival instincts. It doesn't naturally distinguish between a charging predator and giving a presentation at work. To your brain, both can trigger a similar stress response. This is why your heart races before a job interview, your palms sweat before speaking in public, or your mind fills with doubt before making a major life decision. Your brain isn't trying to ruin your future, it's trying to protect you from uncertainty. The problem is that what once helped humans survive can now prevent them from truly living. One of the greatest misconceptions about successful people is that they are fearless. In reality, they experience fear just like everyone else. The difference is that they understand fear doesn't always signal danger. Sometimes it simply signals growth. They recognize that discomfort often appears just before progress. Think about the first time you learned to drive a car. You probably felt nervous every time you approached an intersection or changed lanes. You worried about making mistakes and imagined everything that could go wrong. Yet with practice, those same actions became automatic. What once felt frightening eventually became ordinary. The situation didn't become less real. Your brain simply learned that it wasn't a threat. This is how fear works. It grows in unfamiliar environments and shrinks through repeated exposure. Among all the fears that hold people back, fear of failure is perhaps the most powerful. Society often teaches us that failure is something to avoid at all costs. From childhood, we're rewarded for getting the right answers and criticized for making mistakes. Over time, many people begin to associate failure with personal worth. Instead of seeing failure as an event, they see it as an identity. But failure is not proof that you're incapable. It is proof that you were willing to try something difficult. Every meaningful achievement includes moments of disappointment, setbacks, and unexpected obstacles. Those experiences are not signs to quit. They are opportunities to learn. Another common fear is the fear of rejection. Human beings are naturally social creatures. For thousands of years, belonging to a group increased the chances of survival. Being rejected by the tribe could have life or death consequences. Even today, that ancient instinct remains. We worry about being judged, criticized, or excluded, even when the consequences are relatively small. This fear quietly influences countless decisions. People stay silent during meetings because they're afraid of sounding foolish. They avoid introducing themselves to new people because they fear being ignored. They remain in unhappy jobs because they worry that applying elsewhere might lead to rejection. Ironically, by trying to avoid rejection, they often reject their own potential first. Fear also disguises itself as logic. Instead of saying, "I'm scared," your mind creates convincing excuses. It says, "I'll start next year. I need more experience. The timing isn't right. Someone else can do it better." These thoughts feel reasonable, but many of them are simply fear wearing the mask of rational thinking. Over time, avoiding discomfort becomes a habit. Each time you choose safety over challenge, your brain rewards you with immediate relief. That relief feels good, so you're more likely to make the same decision again. Gradually, your comfort zone expands its influence over your life. The less often you face fear, the stronger fear becomes. Fortunately, the opposite is also true. Every time you take one small step despite your fear, your brain begins collecting new evidence. It learns that speaking up doesn't always lead to embarrassment. Applying for a new opportunity doesn't guarantee rejection. Trying something difficult doesn't automatically end in disaster. With each experience, fear loses a little of its power. Courage isn't the absence of fear. Courage is choosing to move forward while fear is still sitting beside you. In fact, if you wait until fear disappears completely, you may wait forever. Confidence doesn't usually come before action. It comes because of action. The next time fear appears, don't immediately treat it as an enemy. Instead, ask yourself a different question. Is this fear protecting me from genuine danger, or is it simply protecting me from growth? That single question can change the direction of your life. Remember, your brain was designed to keep you safe, not necessarily to help you reach your highest potential. Reaching that potential requires teaching your mind a new lesson, that uncertainty is not always something to escape. Sometimes, it is exactly where your greatest opportunities begin. Chapter 3. Recognizing the comfort zone trap. Have you ever felt like your life was moving, but somehow you weren't? You wake up, go through your routine, complete your responsibilities, and cross tasks off your to-do list. Days become weeks, weeks become months, and before long, another year has passed. Everything appears normal on the surface, yet deep inside, there's a quiet voice asking, "Is this all there is?" That feeling is often the first sign of the comfort zone trap. Unlike failure or hardship, the comfort zone doesn't arrive with warning signs. It doesn't announce itself dramatically. Instead, it quietly settles into your life until it becomes your new normal. That's why so many people don't realize they're trapped. They aren't unhappy enough to change, but they aren't fulfilled enough to grow. They exist in the dangerous space between satisfaction and regret. One of the clearest signs that you're stuck is when every day begins to look exactly like the last. Predictability has its benefits, but when every decision becomes automatic, your personal growth begins to slow. You're no longer learning, exploring, or challenging yourself. You're simply repeating what already feels familiar. Ask yourself a few honest questions. When was the last time you learned a completely new skill? When did you last have a conversation that changed your perspective? When did you last do something that genuinely made you nervous because it mattered to you? If those moments are difficult to remember, your comfort zone may have quietly become your permanent residence. Another sign is the constant search for the perfect time. Many people postpone their goals because they believe they'll act when circumstances improve. They tell themselves they'll start exercising after work becomes less busy, launch a business after saving a little more money, learn a language after life slows down, or chase a dream after they feel more confident. The truth is that perfect conditions rarely exist. Life will always present new responsibilities, unexpected challenges, and reasons to wait. The comfort zone loves the phrase, "I'll start tomorrow," because tomorrow never demands action. It allows you to feel productive without actually making progress. Excuses are another powerful weapon of the comfort zone. These excuses often sound logical and responsible. I'm too busy. I'm too old. I'm too young. I don't have enough experience. What if I fail? What if people laugh at me? The remarkable thing about excuses is that they don't have to be completely false to become dangerous. Even if they contain a small amount of truth, they can still prevent you from taking meaningful action. The comfort zone doesn't need to convince you to give up forever. It only needs to convince you to delay one more day, then another, and another. Eventually, hesitation becomes a lifestyle. Small compromises are especially deceptive because they seem insignificant in the moment. Skipping one workout doesn't seem important. Delaying one application doesn't appear life-changing. Avoiding one difficult conversation feels harmless. Reading one less chapter, saving a little less money, or choosing convenience over discipline each seem like minor decisions. But life is rarely shaped by one dramatic event. More often, it's shaped by thousands of tiny choices repeated consistently over time. Imagine a ship sailing across the ocean. If its direction changes by only 1 degree, the difference appears almost invisible at first. Yet after traveling hundreds of miles, that tiny adjustment leads to an entirely different destination. Human lives work the same way. Small daily choices gradually determine whether you move toward your dreams or drift away from them. Another hidden sign of the comfort zone trap is when you begin comparing yourself only to people who are standing still. Instead of seeking inspiration from those who challenge you, you surround yourself with people who make you feel comfortable. While supportive relationships are important, constant comparison to people with similar habits can create the illusion that you're already doing enough. Growth often requires placing yourself in environments where you're not the smartest, most experienced, or most accomplished person in the room. Those situations may feel uncomfortable, but they also create powerful opportunities to learn. Many people also mistake being busy for being productive. A calendar full of meetings, emails, errands, and responsibilities can create the impression of progress, yet being occupied isn't the same as moving forward. You can spend an entire day working hard without doing a single thing that moves your life closer to your biggest goals. Real progress usually feels different. It often requires focused effort, difficult conversations, uncomfortable decisions, and the willingness to try something unfamiliar. Growth demands intention, not just activity. The good news is that recognizing the comfort zone trap is already a significant step toward escaping it. Awareness changes everything. Once you begin noticing the excuses, the delays, and the repetitive patterns that have quietly shaped your life, you regain the power to choose differently. You don't have to transform your entire life overnight. In fact, lasting change rarely happens that way. What matters is becoming aware of the small decisions you make each day. Every time you choose learning over routine, courage over convenience, or action over excuses, you weaken the grip of the comfort zone. Remember, the trap isn't that your life feels comfortable. The trap is believing that comfort alone is enough. A meaningful life isn't built by avoiding challenges. It's built by accepting that growth requires movement. And movement always begins with one brave step beyond what's familiar. Chapter 4. The Growth Zone, where transformation happens. Every meaningful transformation begins with a single uncomfortable moment. Think back to any skill you've ever mastered. Whether it was learning to ride a bicycle, swimming for the first time, driving a car, or speaking a new language. The beginning was never easy. You felt awkward, uncertain, and perhaps even frustrated. You made mistakes, doubted yourself, and wondered if you would ever improve. Yet if you had stopped because it felt uncomfortable, you would never have experienced the confidence that eventually followed. This simple truth reveals one of life's greatest secrets. Growth and comfort cannot exist in the same place for very long. Many people imagine life as having only two choices, comfort or fear. But personal development is more nuanced than that. Between where you are today and where you want to be lies a journey through several stages. Understanding these stages helps you recognize why discomfort is not your enemy, but your greatest teacher. The first stage is the comfort zone. Here, everything feels familiar. You know what to expect. Your routines require little effort, and your confidence comes from repeating what you've already mastered. There is nothing inherently wrong with this place. It allows you to recover, reflect, and recharge. The problem arises when you decide to live here permanently. Without new challenges, your abilities remain unchanged, your perspective narrows, and your potential slowly fades into possibility instead of reality. The second stage is the fear zone. This is where most people turn back. As soon as they try something unfamiliar, self-doubt begins to speak. They worry about criticism, failure, rejection, or embarrassment. Their minds become filled with questions. What if I'm not good enough? What if people judge me? What if I fail? These thoughts feel convincing because your brain interprets uncertainty as danger. But here's the important distinction. Discomfort is not the same as danger. Feeling nervous before an interview doesn't mean you shouldn't attend it. Feeling anxious before launching a business doesn't mean the idea is bad. More often than not, these emotions simply indicate that you're stepping into unfamiliar territory. If you continue despite the fear, you enter the learning zone. This is where real change begins. Here, you develop new skills, gain knowledge, solve unexpected problems, and discover strengths you didn't know you possessed. Mistakes become valuable lessons instead of reasons to quit. Challenges stop feeling like threats and start becoming opportunities to improve. Eventually, repeated learning leads to the growth zone. This is where your confidence becomes genuine because it has been earned through experience. You no longer rely on hope alone, you rely on evidence. You've overcome obstacles before, so you trust yourself to overcome future ones as well. Many people believe success creates confidence. In reality, confidence is often created by surviving difficult experiences. Every challenge you overcome becomes proof that you're stronger than you once believed. Consider learning to ride a bicycle. The first attempt feels terrifying. You struggle to balance, your movements are awkward, and falling seems inevitable. There may be scraped knees and moments when you feel like giving up, but every attempt teaches your body something new. Gradually, your balance improves. One day, without even realizing it, you're riding confidently down the road. The discomfort didn't disappear first. You moved through it, and confidence followed. Life works exactly the same way. Discomfort isn't a sign that something is wrong. It's often a sign that you're expanding your abilities. This is why nearly every successful person shares one important characteristic. They have learned to reinterpret discomfort. Instead of asking, "How can I avoid this feeling?" they ask, "What is this challenge trying to teach me?" A difficult project at work teaches leadership. A challenging conversation teaches communication. Starting a business teaches resilience and creativity. Speaking before an audience teaches confidence. Every uncomfortable experience carries a lesson that comfort could never provide. Of course, not every challenge should be pursued recklessly. Growth doesn't mean ignoring wisdom or taking unnecessary risks. It means choosing challenges that stretch your abilities while remaining aligned with your values and long-term goals. The goal isn't constant exhaustion. The goal is continuous expansion. Imagine if every week you intentionally did one thing that stretched your limits. You volunteered for a presentation instead of avoiding it. You introduced yourself to someone new. You enrolled in a course you've always wanted to take. You shared your ideas instead of remaining silent. Each action might seem small on its own, but together they reshape your identity. Over time, something remarkable happens. The situations that once frightened you become routine. The comfort zone itself begins to expand because you've taught your brain that unfamiliar experiences are not always dangerous. What once seemed impossible becomes ordinary, and new opportunities no longer feel overwhelming. Growth is not an event, it is a lifestyle. It is the daily decision to choose progress over perfection, learning over certainty, and courage over convenience. Remember this whenever you face an uncomfortable opportunity. The life you want will rarely invite you while you're sitting comfortably on the sidelines. It will ask you to take a step into uncertainty first. That step may feel small, it may feel frightening, but it is also the place where transformation begins. Beyond the fear, beyond the uncertainty, and beyond the temporary discomfort, lies a stronger, wiser, and more capable version of yourself, one that could never have been discovered by staying where it was safe. Chapter 5. Breaking Mental Barriers. Have you ever stopped yourself before you even began? Maybe you wanted to apply for a better job, but a voice inside your head whispered, "You're not qualified enough." Perhaps you dreamed of starting a business, but another thought quickly followed. What if it fails? Maybe you wanted to speak up in a meeting, write a book, learn a new skill, or chase a lifelong dream, only to convince yourself that someone else was better suited for the opportunity. The greatest barriers to success are rarely physical. More often they exist within the mind. Mental barriers are invisible beliefs that quietly shape your decisions. They influence what you attempt, what you avoid, and ultimately, the life you create. The most challenging part is that these beliefs often feel like facts. You don't question them because you've repeated them so many times that they seem true. But a belief is not necessarily reality. Many of the limitations people carry were never consciously chosen. They were formed through childhood experiences, criticism, failures, comparisons, and repeated messages from the people around them. A child who is constantly told they aren't good enough may grow into an adult who hesitates to take risks. Someone who fails once may convince themselves they're simply not talented. Over time, these experiences become stories, and those stories become identities. The problem is that your mind will always look for evidence to support the story you believe. If you believe you're incapable of success, you'll notice every mistake and ignore every achievement. If you believe people will reject you, you'll remember every criticism while forgetting every compliment. Your brain naturally searches for proof that confirms your existing beliefs. This is why changing your life begins with changing the story you tell yourself. Consider the difference between two people facing the same challenge. Both receive constructive criticism after giving a presentation. The first person thinks, "I'm terrible at public speaking. I'll never do this again." The second person thinks, "I have areas to improve, but this feedback will help me become a better speaker." The event is identical, yet the interpretation creates two completely different futures. Your mindset doesn't simply influence your emotions, it influences your actions, and your actions shape your results. One of the most common mental barriers is the belief that confidence must come before action. People often say, "I'll start when I feel confident." Unfortunately, confidence rarely works that way. If you wait to feel completely ready, you'll spend much of your life waiting. Think about every confident person you've ever admired. They weren't born fearless, they became confident because they repeatedly acted despite uncertainty. Confidence is earned through experience, not granted before it. This is why courage is far more valuable than confidence. Confidence depends on knowing you can succeed. Courage depends on acting even when success isn't guaranteed. Confidence grows after repeated victories. Courage is what creates those victories in the first place. Imagine standing at the base of a mountain you've never climbed. If you refuse to take the first step because you can't already see the summit, you'll remain exactly where you are. Every journey begins before certainty exists. Courage bridges the gap between where you are and where you want to be. Another powerful mental barrier is perfectionism. Perfectionism often disguises itself as high standards, but underneath it is usually fear. Fear of making mistakes, fear of being judged, fear of producing something less than perfect. As a result, many people never begin at all. The truth is that perfection is an impossible target. Every expert was once a beginner. Every best-selling author wrote imperfect first drafts. Every successful entrepreneur made costly mistakes. Every skilled musician once played the wrong notes. Progress has always defeated perfection. The people who achieve extraordinary things aren't necessarily the most talented. They're often the ones willing to be beginners longer than everyone else. Your inner dialogue also plays a powerful role in shaping your future. Pay attention to how you speak to yourself during difficult moments. Would you speak to a close friend the same way you speak to yourself? Many people become their own harshest critics. They magnify every mistake while minimizing every accomplishment. They expect flawless performance from themselves while offering patience and understanding to everyone else. Imagine replacing statements like, "I can't do this," with "I haven't mastered this yet." Replace "I'm not smart enough" with "I can learn." Replace "I always fail" with "every attempt teaches me something valuable." These aren't empty positive affirmations. They're realistic reminders that growth is possible. Language influences belief, and belief influences behavior. Another effective way to break mental barriers is by questioning your assumptions. Whenever you catch yourself saying, "I could never do that," pause and ask, "Why do I believe this? Is it based on evidence, or is it based on fear? Have you actually tried, or have you simply assumed failure?" Often you'll discover that your biggest limitations are built on predictions rather than facts. The mind also thrives on familiarity. That's why stepping outside your comfort zone feels uncomfortable at first. But every time you challenge a limiting belief with action, you weaken its influence. If you believe you're bad at networking, start one conversation. If you believe you're not creative, spend 15 minutes creating something. If you believe you're not a leader, volunteer to lead a small project. Action provides evidence that your old beliefs are incomplete. Gradually, your identity begins to change. You no longer see yourself as someone who avoids challenges. You become someone who learns from them. You stop defining yourself by your fears and start defining yourself by your willingness to grow. Remember, your mind can become either your greatest ally or your greatest obstacle. It believes what you repeatedly tell it and reinforces what you repeatedly do. Breaking mental barriers doesn't happen overnight. It happens one thought, one decision, and one courageous action at a time. Every time you challenge a limiting belief, instead of obeying it, you reclaim a little more of your potential. The walls that have held you back for years were never made of stone. They were built from doubt, fear, and old stories. And just as those stories were learned, they can be rewritten. The moment you choose a new belief and support it with action, those invisible walls begin to crumble. On the other side isn't just a better opportunity or a bigger achievement. It's a stronger version of yourself, one who finally realizes that the greatest limits were never around you. They were only within you. Chapter 6. Small Risks, Extraordinary Results. When people think about changing their lives, they often imagine dramatic moments. They picture quitting their job overnight, moving to a new country, launching a business with a single bold decision, or making one giant leap that transforms everything. Movies and social media love these stories because they are exciting, but real life usually works very differently. Extraordinary lives are rarely built on extraordinary moments. They are built on ordinary decisions made consistently over time. One of the biggest mistakes people make is believing that success requires giant risks. This belief is intimidating because giant risks feel overwhelming. As a result, many people do nothing at all. They wait for the perfect plan, the perfect timing, or the perfect level of confidence. Unfortunately, perfection never arrives. Real transformation begins with something much smaller. A single conversation, a single page read, a single workout, a single application submitted, a single difficult decision. These actions may seem insignificant on their own, but they possess incredible power because they create momentum. Think about pushing a heavy boulder resting on the ground. The first push requires enormous effort, yet the rock barely moves. The second push feels just as difficult. But after enough consistent effort, the boulder begins to roll. Once it gains momentum, each additional push becomes easier than the last. Human behavior follows the same principle. The hardest part of almost any goal is simply getting started. Small risks are powerful because they are manageable. They don't overwhelm your mind or trigger the intense fear that accompanies massive life changes. Instead, they gently stretch your comfort zone, teaching your brain that growth is both possible and safe. Imagine someone who dreams of becoming physically fit. They often make the mistake of committing to 2-hour workouts every day, strict diets, and unrealistic expectations. After a week or two, exhaustion sets in, motivation fades, and they return to their old habits. Now imagine another person who begins with just 15 minutes of exercise each day. The routine feels simple enough to maintain. After several weeks, 15 minutes becomes 30. Soon, exercise is no longer something they force themselves to do. It has become part of who they are. The difference wasn't motivation, it was consistency. This principle applies to every area of life. If you want to become a better reader, begin with 10 pages a day. If you want to improve your communication skills, start one meaningful conversation each day. If you want to save money, begin by setting aside a small amount regularly instead of waiting until you can save a large sum. If you want to become a writer, write a few hundred words every morning instead of waiting for inspiration. These small actions appear insignificant in isolation, but over months and years, they produce remarkable results. One of the reasons people underestimate small actions is because they focus only on immediate outcomes. Reading 10 pages today won't make you an expert. Saving a small amount this week won't make you wealthy. Exercising for 15 minutes won't transform your body overnight. But success isn't created by today's result alone. It is created by today's action repeated hundreds of times. Imagine planting a seed in your garden. After one day, nothing appears to happen. After 1 week, there is still very little to see. If you judged the seed by immediate results, you might conclude that your efforts were wasted. Yet beneath the surface, roots are quietly developing. Eventually, a small sprout emerges. Given enough care and patience, that tiny seed grows into a strong tree. Personal growth follows exactly the same pattern. The most important changes happen beneath the surface, long before they become visible. Every small promise you keep to yourself strengthens your self-confidence. Every tiny challenge you overcome increases your resilience. Every consistent action reinforces a new identity. Resilience is another quality built through small risks rather than dramatic events. Many people believe resilience is something people are born with. In reality, resilience is developed through repeated exposure to manageable difficulties. Every challenge you overcome teaches your mind an important lesson. I survived this, and I can handle the next one too. Imagine someone who is terrified of meeting new people. The idea of speaking to a large audience feels impossible. Instead of forcing themselves into a huge presentation immediately, they begin by greeting one stranger each day. Then they join small group discussions. Later, they volunteer to speak briefly during meetings. Months later, standing before a large audience no longer feels impossible because confidence has been built one conversation at a time. Notice that nothing changed overnight. Growth happened through gradual expansion. Another remarkable benefit of taking small risks is that they reduce the fear of failure. When every action is treated as an experiment rather than a final judgment, mistakes lose much of their emotional power. Instead of asking, "What if I fail?" you begin asking, "What can I learn?" This shift in perspective transforms fear into curiosity. Curiosity encourages action. Action creates experience. Experience builds wisdom. Wisdom produces confidence. That is the cycle of growth. Momentum works the same way. One positive action naturally encourages another. A morning workout increases your energy, making you more productive at work. Increased productivity boosts your confidence. Greater confidence inspires you to tackle more challenging goals. One healthy habit begins influencing every other area of your life. Likewise, negative habits create momentum in the opposite direction. Procrastination leads to guilt. Guilt reduces motivation. Reduced motivation encourages more procrastination. The cycle continues until you intentionally interrupt it. The good news is that positive momentum is often just as contagious as negative momentum. The key is refusing to underestimate small victories. Celebrate finishing one chapter of a book. Celebrate making one difficult phone call. Celebrate choosing discipline over convenience. Celebrate showing up even when you don't feel like it. These moments may seem ordinary, but they are quietly reshaping your character. Remember, success is not built by occasional acts of greatness. It is built by repeated acts of courage that most people consider too small to matter. Each tiny risk tells your brain a powerful story. I am someone who takes action. Each consistent effort strengthens that identity. Eventually, what once felt uncomfortable becomes natural. The person who feared speaking now volunteers to lead meetings. The beginner who struggled to exercise now can't imagine skipping a workout. The individual who once doubted their abilities now inspires others through their example. Looking back, the transformation appears remarkable. Yet it didn't begin with one heroic leap. It began with one small, courageous decision, and then another, and another. That's how extraordinary results are created, not through one life-changing moment, but through hundreds of small choices that quietly change the direction of your life forever. Chapter 7. Failure is your greatest teacher. Few words create as much fear as the word failure. For many people, it represents disappointment, embarrassment, or the painful feeling of not being good enough. Society often treats failure as something to avoid at all costs. We celebrate success, admire achievement, and applaud winners, but we rarely see the countless failures that made those victories possible. The truth is that failure is not the opposite of success. Failure is one of the most important steps on the road to success. Every remarkable achievement is built on lessons learned from mistakes. Every expert was once inexperienced. Every champion lost competitions before winning them. Every inventor created ideas that didn't work before discovering the one that did. What separates extraordinary people from everyone else is not that they fail less, it is that they learn more from every failure. One of the greatest examples of this mindset is Thomas Edison. Before successfully inventing a practical electric light bulb, Edison tested thousands of different materials and designs. When people questioned his repeated failures, he famously explained that he had not failed thousands of times. Instead, he had discovered thousands of ways that did not work. Every unsuccessful experiment brought him one step closer to the solution. Imagine if he had quit after the first failure, or the 10th, or the 100th. The world might have been very different. His story reminds us of a powerful truth. Failure is only permanent when you decide to stop trying. The problem is that most people don't fear failure itself. They fear what failure seems to say about them. They believe that making a mistake means they are unintelligent, incapable, or unworthy. But failure is an event, not an identity. If your first attempt at learning a new language goes poorly, you are not a failure. If your business idea doesn't succeed, you are not a failure. If you make mistakes during a presentation or perform badly in an interview, those experiences do not define your value. They simply provide information that helps you improve. Think back to when you were learning to walk as a child. You fell repeatedly. You lost your balance, stumbled, and collapsed more times than anyone could count. Yet no one looked at a toddler and concluded they would never learn to walk because they had fallen too often. Falling was expected. It was understood to be part of the learning process. Somehow, as adults, we forget this lesson. We begin expecting ourselves to succeed immediately. We become impatient with mistakes and embarrassed by imperfect performances. Instead of viewing failure as education, we treat it as evidence that we should quit. But growth has never worked that way. Failure is one of life's most honest teachers because it gives feedback that success often cannot. Success tells you that something worked. Failure tells you why something didn't. That information is incredibly valuable if you're willing to listen instead of giving up. Imagine an entrepreneur launching a new product. The first version receives little attention. Instead of abandoning the dream, they ask difficult questions. What problem did the product fail to solve? What feedback did customers provide? What improvements could be made? Those questions transform failure into knowledge. The same principle applies to every area of life. A failed interview teaches you how to prepare more effectively. A failed relationship teaches you about communication, boundaries, and emotional maturity. A failed project teaches better planning and execution. Every setback carries a lesson waiting to be discovered. Another important truth is that failure builds emotional strength. Life will never unfold exactly as planned. Unexpected obstacles, disappointments, and challenges are inevitable. If every setback causes you to lose confidence, you'll spend much of your life starting over emotionally. But each time you recover from disappointment, you develop resilience. Resilience is not the ability to avoid hardship. It is the ability to continue despite hardship. Think of resilience as a muscle. Every challenge strengthens it. Every obstacle you overcome increases your capacity to face future difficulties. Just as physical muscles grow stronger after resistance, emotional strength grows stronger after adversity. People who have never experienced failure often struggle when they encounter their first major setback. They have not yet developed the emotional tools needed to recover. In contrast, those who have learned from repeated failures often remain calm under pressure because they understand something important. Setbacks are temporary. They know that difficult moments eventually pass. One reason successful people appear so confident is because they have survived countless failures. They trust themselves not because everything always goes according to plan, but because they know they can adapt when it doesn't. This is a powerful shift in thinking. Instead of asking, "What if I fail?" begin asking, "If I fail, what will I learn?" That simple question changes fear into preparation. It reminds you that every experience has value, regardless of the outcome. Of course, learning from failure requires honesty. It's easy to blame circumstances, other people, or bad luck. While external factors sometimes play a role, lasting growth begins when you take responsibility for what you can control. Ask yourself, what could I have done differently? What skill do I need to improve? What lesson should I carry into my next attempt? Responsibility is empowering because it places your future back into your own hands. Another mistake people make is comparing their failures to someone else's success. You see the finished product but rarely witness the years of struggle behind it. Every successful person has faced rejection, criticism, disappointment, and moments of doubt. The difference is that they refuse to let temporary defeats become permanent conclusions. Remember that every chapter of your life prepares you for the next one. Some chapters bring victories, others bring valuable lessons. Both are necessary. As you continue your journey beyond the comfort zone, don't measure your progress by how often you avoid failure. Measure it by how quickly you learn, adapt, and move forward after each setback. Because in the end, failure is not the obstacle standing between you and your dreams. Quitting is. Every mistake you survive makes you wiser. Every setback you overcome makes you stronger. Every lesson you apply brings you closer to the person you are capable of becoming. So don't fear failure. Respect it. Learn from it. Let it shape you instead of stopping you. One day, when you look back on your greatest achievements, you may discover something surprising. The moments you once wished had never happened, the disappointments, the rejected opportunities, the painful mistakes and the unexpected setbacks were not detours after all. They were the very experiences that prepared you for the success you were always meant to achieve. Chapter 8. Building Habits That Expand Your Life. Your future is not created by what you do once in a while. It is created by what you do every single day. Many people believe that success comes from motivation. They wait to feel inspired before they take action. On days when motivation is high, they work hard, exercise, read, or pursue their goals. But when motivation disappears, and it always does, they stop. Days turn into weeks, and the progress they made slowly fades away. The truth is that motivation is unreliable. Habits are reliable. Habits are the small actions you perform so consistently that they become automatic. They require less mental effort because your brain has learned to repeat them without much thought. This is why brushing your teeth, tying your shoes, or checking your phone often happens almost automatically. The more frequently you repeat a behavior, the stronger the habit becomes. The question isn't whether you have habits. The question is whether your habits are building the life you want or quietly holding you back. Every habit either expands your future or limits it. Imagine two people with similar abilities. One spends 30 minutes every evening learning a new skill, reading books or improving their knowledge. The other spends those same 30 minutes endlessly scrolling through social media without purpose. At first, there seems to be no noticeable difference between them. But after 1 year, the gap becomes significant. After 5 years, their lives may look completely different. The difference wasn't talent, it was daily habits. One of the most powerful shifts you can make is replacing comfort-seeking habits with growth-seeking habits. Comfort-seeking habits provide immediate pleasure, but often delay long-term rewards. Choosing entertainment over learning, procrastination over action, or convenience over discipline feels good in the moment. Unfortunately, those small choices slowly shape a future that feels smaller than your potential. Growth-seeking habits work differently. They may feel difficult at first, but they produce rewards that continue growing over time. Reading instead of scrolling, exercising instead of making excuses, practicing a skill instead of avoiding it, saving money instead of spending impulsively. These choices require effort today, but create freedom tomorrow. This doesn't mean your life should become a constant struggle. Rest, recreation, and enjoyment are important. The goal is balance. The difference is that successful people don't allow temporary comfort to replace meaningful progress. Discipline plays a central role in this transformation. Many people misunderstand discipline, imagining it as punishment or extreme self-control. In reality, discipline is simply the ability to choose what matters most over what feels easiest. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, your discipline grows stronger. When you wake up and exercise even though you'd rather stay in bed, you strengthen discipline. When you continue reading instead of reaching for your phone, you strengthen discipline. When you complete an important task before seeking entertainment, you strengthen discipline. Like a muscle, discipline becomes stronger through regular use. Another often overlooked factor in building successful habits is your environment. Your surroundings influence your decisions more than you may realize. If unhealthy food is always within reach, resisting temptation becomes more difficult. If your phone constantly interrupts your attention with notifications, staying focused becomes nearly impossible. If the people around you constantly discourage growth, maintaining motivation becomes a challenge. Now imagine a different environment. A bookshelf filled with inspiring books, a workspace free from unnecessary distractions, running shoes placed beside your bed, healthy meals prepared in advance, friends who encourage your goals instead of questioning them. Suddenly, making good decisions requires less effort because your environment supports the behavior you want to develop. Consider someone who wants to become healthier. Instead of relying on willpower alone, they prepare nutritious meals ahead of time, keep fresh fruit within easy reach, schedule workouts in their calendar, and remove unhealthy temptations from their home. They aren't simply hoping to make better choices, they're designing an environment where better choices become easier. This is an important lesson. Don't just rely on motivation. Build systems that make success more likely. Another secret to lasting habits is starting smaller than you think you should. People often fail because they make their new routines too difficult. They promise to exercise 2 hours every day, read 3 books each week, or completely transform their lives overnight. Within days, exhaustion replaces enthusiasm. Instead, begin with habits so small they feel impossible to skip. Read 5 pages, exercise for 10 minutes, write 1 paragraph, meditate for 5 minutes, save a small amount consistently. Small actions repeated daily are far more powerful than ambitious plans that are abandoned after a week. As these habits become automatic, you naturally begin doing more. Progress grows from consistency, not intensity. Perhaps the greatest reward of positive habits is that they gradually change your identity. At first, you exercise because you want to become healthier. Eventually, you begin seeing yourself as someone who values health. At first, you read because you want to learn. Eventually, you become someone who sees learning as part of who you are. Identity-based habits are powerful because they no longer depend on external rewards. You continue acting because the behavior reflects the person you believe yourself to be. This is where lasting transformation occurs. Remember, your habits are quietly writing the story of your future. Every choice you make today is a vote for the person you will become tomorrow. You don't need to change everything at once. Choose one habit that moves you toward the life you want. Practice it consistently. Protect it from distractions. Allow it to become part of your identity. Over time, those small daily actions will accomplish something extraordinary. They won't simply change your schedule. They will change your character. And when your character changes, your life inevitably follows. Chapter 9. Living boldly, despite uncertainty. If there is one promise that life makes to every human being, it is this: nothing is certain. The future cannot be predicted with complete accuracy. Careers change, industries evolve, technology advances, relationships grow or end, opportunities appear without warning, and challenges arrive when we least expect them. Yet despite knowing this, many people spend their lives searching for absolute certainty before making an important decision. They wait until they know they can't fail. They wait until they feel completely confident. They wait until every question has an answer. They wait until the timing is perfect. And while they wait, life keeps moving. One of the greatest illusions we believe is that certainty exists somewhere in the future. We tell ourselves that one day we'll have enough experience, enough money, enough knowledge, or enough confidence to make the right decision without fear. But the truth is that certainty is not something you discover. It is something you learn to live without. Every meaningful achievement requires stepping into the unknown. No entrepreneur knows with absolute certainty that a business will succeed. No author knows whether readers will embrace a new book. No athlete knows they will win before entering the competition. No one begins a meaningful relationship with a guarantee that it will last forever. Life has never offered guarantees. It offers possibilities. The people who accomplish extraordinary things understand this difference. They don't wait until uncertainty disappears because they know it never will. Instead, they develop the courage to move forward while uncertainty walks beside them. Think about a sailor preparing to cross the ocean. They cannot control the weather, the waves, or the wind. Waiting for perfect conditions could mean staying in the harbor forever. Instead, experienced sailors prepare as thoroughly as possible, study the conditions, strengthen their skills, and then set sail. They know unexpected storms may appear, but they also trust their ability to navigate them. Life works in much the same way. Preparation is essential. Perfection is impossible. Many people confuse uncertainty with danger. These are not the same thing. Real danger deserves caution. Walking into a burning building or making reckless financial decisions without understanding the risks is unwise. But uncertainty simply means you don't know exactly how events will unfold. Starting a new career is uncertain. Learning a new skill is uncertain. Moving to a different city is uncertain. Asking someone for an opportunity is uncertain. None of these situations are guaranteed, but neither are they reasons to remain frozen. Often uncertainty is simply the price of growth. One reason uncertainty feels uncomfortable is because the human brain naturally seeks patterns. It likes routines, predictability, and familiar outcomes. When those patterns disappear, the brain interprets the situation as stressful. That's why trying something new often creates anxiety before anything has actually gone wrong. But anxiety is not always a warning. Sometimes it is simply evidence that you're entering unfamiliar territory. Imagine standing at the edge of a forest you've never explored. From where you stand, the path ahead seems unclear. You cannot see every turn, every obstacle, or every destination. You have two choices. You can remain exactly where you are because the unknown feels uncomfortable, or you can take the first step and allow the path to reveal itself one section at a time. Life rarely shows you the entire journey. It usually reveals the next step. This is why successful decision-makers focus less on certainty and more on preparation. Instead of asking, "How can I guarantee success?" they ask, "How can I increase my chances of success?" They gather information, they seek advice, they improve their skills, they prepare for obstacles. Then they act. Waiting for certainty often becomes another form of procrastination disguised as responsibility. Another powerful quality that allows people to thrive in uncertain situations is adaptability. Adaptability is the ability to adjust when circumstances change. Instead of resisting reality, adaptable people accept that change is inevitable and quickly begin searching for solutions. Think about bamboo during a powerful storm. Massive trees may break because they resist the wind with rigid strength. Bamboo survives because it bends without breaking. Its flexibility becomes its greatest strength. Human beings possess the same ability. Those who refuse to adapt often struggle when life changes unexpectedly. They cling to old methods, familiar routines, and outdated beliefs, even when circumstances demand something different. Those who embrace adaptability ask different questions. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" they ask, "What can I learn from this?" Instead of asking, "Why did my plan fail?" they ask, "How should I adjust my plan?" Instead of focusing on what they lost, they focus on what they can build next. Adaptability transforms obstacles into opportunities because it keeps your attention on solutions rather than problems. Resilience also plays an essential role. Life will disappoint you from time to time. Plans will fail. People will let you down. Unexpected setbacks will interrupt your progress. The goal is not to avoid these experiences. The goal is to recover from them more quickly each time. Resilience doesn't mean pretending everything is fine. It means believing that difficult seasons are temporary. It means trusting your ability to rebuild. It means refusing to let one setback define your future. Another important lesson is that confidence is often misunderstood. Many people believe confident individuals always know exactly what they're doing. In reality, confident people frequently step into situations where they have no complete certainty. The difference is that they trust themselves to figure things out along the way. Confidence isn't knowing you'll never make mistakes. Confidence is knowing you can recover if you do. This distinction changes everything. When you stop demanding certainty before taking action, you free yourself from the impossible expectation of always having the right answer. Instead, you become comfortable with learning as you go. You begin making decisions based on your values instead of your fears. You stop asking, "What if everything goes wrong?" You begin asking, "What if everything goes right?" Or perhaps an even better question, "What if I become stronger, regardless of the outcome?" Every uncertain experience teaches you something valuable. Every challenge expands your perspective. Every risk strengthens your judgment. Every setback sharpens your resilience. Even outcomes that don't match your expectations often lead to opportunities you could never have predicted. Many of the most successful people can trace the turning points of their lives to moments when they chose action despite uncertainty. Had they waited until every answer was available, those opportunities would have passed them by. The same is true for you. Your future will not be shaped by the number of guarantees you receive. It will be shaped by the number of courageous decisions you make despite uncertainty. Remember that life rewards movement. The path becomes clearer after you begin walking. The answers become visible after you start searching. The confidence grows after you take action. And the person you are becoming is built every time you choose courage over comfort. So don't spend your life waiting for certainty. It is a destination no one ever reaches. Instead, prepare well, learn continuously, adapt quickly. Trust your ability to grow through whatever comes your way, because beyond uncertainty lies possibility. Beyond possibility lies transformation. And beyond transformation lies the life you are always capable of creating. If only you were willing to take the first step without knowing exactly where the road would lead. Chapter 10. A Life Beyond Limits. Imagine meeting two versions of yourself 10 years from today. The first version chose comfort whenever life presented a difficult decision. They avoided risks, stayed with familiar routines, postponed dreams, and waited for the right time that never seemed to arrive. Life felt safe, but something was missing. Looking back, they weren't haunted by the mistakes they made. They were haunted by the opportunities they never pursued. The second version made a different choice. They weren't fearless. They doubted themselves many times. They failed, faced rejection, and encountered unexpected setbacks. Yet each challenge became a lesson instead of a stopping point. Year after year, they continued learning, adapting, and growing. Their life wasn't perfect, but it was deeply fulfilling because they refused to let comfort define their future. Which version of yourself would you rather become? That choice begins today. Throughout this audiobook, we've explored the invisible prison of the comfort zone, understood the psychology of fear, recognized the subtle traps that keep people stuck, discovered why growth requires discomfort, learned to break limiting beliefs, embraced the power of small risks, transformed failure into a teacher, built habits that strengthen character, and learned to move forward despite uncertainty. Each chapter has led to one simple but powerful truth. Growth is not a destination. It is a way of living. Many people believe there will come a day when they have arrived. They imagine reaching a certain salary, achieving a particular goal, or earning enough recognition to finally stop growing. But life doesn't work that way. Every achievement creates new opportunities to learn. Every success introduces new challenges. Every stage of life asks something different from us. The people who remain fulfilled are not those who achieve the most. They are those who never stop becoming better than they were yesterday. This is the mindset of lifelong growth. A person committed to lifelong growth understands that education doesn't end after school. Every conversation can teach a lesson. Every book offers a new perspective. Every failure reveals useful information. Every challenge develops character. Instead of asking, when will life become easy, they ask, what is life teaching me right now? That single question transforms every experience into an opportunity. One of the greatest dangers after achieving success is becoming comfortable again. Ironically, success itself can become a new comfort zone. A business becomes profitable, so the owner stops innovating. An employee earns a promotion, so they stop developing new skills. An athlete wins a championship, so they become satisfied with yesterday's accomplishments. History is filled with examples of talented people who stopped growing because they believed they had already reached the top. The world, however, never stands still. Technology changes. Industries evolve. Knowledge expands. New opportunities appear. If you stop growing while the world continues moving forward, you eventually begin falling behind. This doesn't mean you should constantly chase more money, more achievements, or more recognition. Lifelong growth is about becoming a wiser, kinder, stronger, and more capable human being. Sometimes growth means learning a new professional skill. Other times it means becoming a better parent, a better friend, a better leader, or a better listener. Growth isn't measured only by what you accomplish, it's measured by who you become. Purpose plays an equally important role. Without purpose, even success can feel empty. Many people spend years climbing the ladder of success, only to discover it was leaning against the wrong wall. They achieve impressive goals, yet still feel unfulfilled, because their actions weren't connected to something meaningful. Purpose gives direction to growth. It answers an important question: why am I becoming better? Perhaps your purpose is to provide a better life for your family. Perhaps it's to inspire others through your work. Perhaps it's to solve problems, create opportunities, teach, heal, or serve your community. Whatever your purpose may be, let it become the compass that guides your decisions. When your actions are connected to purpose, temporary discomfort becomes much easier to endure because you understand what you're working toward. As you continue your journey, remember that you don't have to transform your entire life overnight. Real change is rarely dramatic. It happens quietly. One courageous conversation, one difficult decision, one new habit, one lesson learned, one fear confronted, one day at a time. These small moments may seem insignificant while you're living them, but together they shape the direction of your life. There will still be days when fear returns. There will still be moments of doubt. You will occasionally fail. You may even find yourself slipping back into old habits from time to time. That doesn't mean you've lost your progress. Growth is not a straight line. It is a continuous journey filled with advances, setbacks, lessons, and new beginnings. The important thing is to keep moving. Every time you choose courage over comfort, you strengthen your character. Every time you choose discipline over distraction, you move closer to your goals. Every time you choose learning over excuses, you expand your potential. Eventually, these choices become your identity. You no longer see yourself as someone trying to improve. You become someone who naturally embraces growth. Imagine waking up each morning, excited not because life is easy, but because every day offers another opportunity to become a better version of yourself. Imagine facing uncertainty with curiosity instead of fear. Imagine viewing setbacks as stepping stones rather than roadblocks. Imagine reaching the end of your life, knowing you explored your potential instead of protecting your comfort. That is a life beyond limits. It is not reserved for the exceptionally talented or the extraordinarily lucky. It belongs to ordinary people who make extraordinary decisions consistently, people who choose progress instead of perfection, action instead of hesitation, learning instead of excuses, purpose instead of comfort. As this chapter comes to an end, remember one final truth. Your comfort zone was never designed to be your permanent home. It was only meant to be a place where you rested before continuing your journey. Beyond its boundaries lies the person you were always capable of becoming: a stronger mind, a braver heart, a wiser perspective, a more meaningful life. The door has always been open. The next step has always been yours to take, and the greatest chapter of your life is still waiting to be written. As we reach the end of this journey, remember one simple truth. Your comfort zone was never meant to be your destination. It was only meant to be a place where you paused, gathered your strength, and prepared for the next step. Throughout this audiobook, you've discovered that fear is natural, failure is a teacher, small actions create extraordinary results, and lasting success is built through consistent growth. More importantly, you've learned that the greatest limits in life are often the ones we place on ourselves. You don't need to change your entire life tomorrow. You don't need to have every answer, or wait until you feel completely confident. All you need is the courage to take one small step beyond what's familiar, then another, and another. Over time, those small choices will shape a life that once seemed impossible. There will be days when fear returns. There will be moments when you question yourself or feel tempted to retreat into old habits. That's okay. Growth is not about being perfect. It's about refusing to stop. Every setback is another lesson. Every challenge is another opportunity to become stronger, wiser, and more resilient. Years from now, your future will not be defined by the comfort you protected, but by the courage you practiced, the dreams you pursue, the risks you take, and the person you choose to become will tell the story of your life. So when this audiobook ends, don't simply close the chapter, begin a new one. Step beyond your comfort zone, embrace uncertainty, choose growth over fear. Because the life you've been searching for has never been waiting inside your comfort zone. It has always been waiting just beyond it,